Welcome to LexTalks Legal Topics. Simplified, a space where we break down complex legal concepts, make them easy to digest.
Exactly.
And today we're taking a deep dive into some key terms from the Transfer of Property Act of 1882.
Oh, yes.
They might sound a little dry at first, but trust me, these are essential for anyone dealing with property in India.
Absolutely.
We're talking about notice registration, attestation, and actionable claims. Ready to unpack these legal building blocks?
Definitely. These terms might sound technical, but they're really the foundation for smooth and, legally sound property transactions.
Right.
Think of them as the rules of the game, making sure everything's fair and clear for everyone involved.
Okay, so let's start with notice.
Okay.
It sounds pretty straightforward, right? Like someone tells you something about a property.
Right.
You've been given notice.
Yeah.
But is it really that simple?
Well, it can be, but there's also a trickier side to notice called constructive notice. So imagine this. You're about to buy a beautiful piece of land, and you see construction materials just scattered around. Even if the seller doesn't explicitly say, hey, there's a project going on here, you could be held responsible for knowing about it.
Wait, so just seeing those materials means I'm legally aware of the construction?
Exactly.
Even if nobody said a word?
That's the power of constructive notice. It protects buyers from hidden surprises, encourages them to be diligent. It's all about what a reasonable person would have known based on the available information.
That makes sense. But it also sounds like it could be easy to miss something.
Yeah.
Crucial.
Yeah.
How can someone protect themselves from being caught out by this constructive notice?
That's where due diligence comes in.
Okay.
Before you buy a property, you need to do your homework.
Right.
Look beyond the surface. Ask questions, check public records, even talk to the neighbors.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Think of it as a detective investigation to uncover any hidden issues.
So notice is all about being aware, whether it's through direct information or by picking up on these clues.
Exactly.
Now, what about registration?
Okay.
I've heard it's super important, but I'm not exactly sure why.
Registration is like the official stamp of approval on a property transaction. It provides legal recognition to the transfer, prevents disputes, safeguards against fraud. Think of it as a public declaration of ownership. Creates a verifiable record that protects both buyers and sellers.
So if I'm buying a property, I definitely want to make sure it's registered.
Yes.
To avoid any nasty surprises down the line, right?
Yes, you want to.
But is registration mandatory for all types of property transfers?
So while the Transfer of Property Act encourages registration for all property transfers, it's particularly crucial for, those with high value or long-term consequences. Like selling a house or a large piece of land. For these transactions, registration isn't just good practice. It's often a legal requirement.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like have that extra layer of security and peace of mind.
Exactly. Especially when dealing with significant assets. But what happens if someone tries to bypass registration? What are the implications?
Trying to skip registration can have serious consequences. The transfer might not be legally recognized, leaving you vulnerable to challenges or claims from others.
Wow.
It's like building a house without a solid foundation.
Yeah.
It might stand for a while, but it's ultimately unstable and risky.
Got it. Registration equals security and legal validity. Now let's move on to attestation. I've heard this term thrown around, but I'm a bit fuzzy on what it actually entails.
Think of attestation as having a legal wingman. It involves witnesses confirming that a document was signed, voluntarily and intentionally by actually watching the person sign and then adding their signatures as proof. It's all about ensuring transparency and preventing fraud.
So it's not just about signing on the dotted line, but also having witnesses back you up.
To ensure the document is genuine and legally sound.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Are there any specific requirements for these witnesses?
Yes.
Or can anyone just sign?
Not just anyone can be a witness. The Transfer of Property Act lays down specific rules. You need at least 2 witnesses who saw the document being signed. And they must be present when the person executing the document signs it. Then they sign themselves in confirmation.
Got it.
This isn't just a formality. It's a vital safeguard to prevent challenges later on.
So both witnesses must sign in the presence of the person signing the main document.
Yes.
No taking the document home to sign later.
No, that's right.
That seems like a really important detail that could easily be overlooked.
You're absolutely right. And overlooking this detail could potentially invalidate the whole attestation process.
Wow.
Making the document vulnerable to legal challenges.
Okay.
Attestation might seem like a small step,
right,
but it plays a big role in ensuring the enforceability of legal documents, especially for transactions like mortgages and gifts of immovable property.
Wow. I'm starting to see how these concepts, though seemingly technical, are crucial for protecting everyone involved
Absolutely.
in a property transaction.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered notice registration and attestation.
Yes.
Let's tackle the last term on our list, actionable claim.
Okay.
This one sounds a bit more complex.
Right.
What exactly does it mean?
An actionable claim is essentially a legal IOU.
Okay.
It's the right to demand a debt or some other movable property that can be enforced through legal action.
Okay.
It's like having a legal tool in your belt that you can use to recover what's owed to you.
So if someone owes me money and they refuse to pay, that would be an actionable claim because I can take them to court to recover the debt.
Exactly.
It's like having a legal right with some teeth.
Precisely. Unpaid rent, like you mentioned, is a classic example.
Right.
But actionable claims go beyond simple debts. Imagine you're negotiating a complex business deal. Understanding how actionable claims can be transferred could give you a strategic edge.
Hold on. You can transfer these claims.
Yes.
So it's not just about collecting what's owed to you.
Right.
It's also about potentially leveraging those rights.
Yes.
In different ways.
Absolutely. This mechanism of transferring actionable claims is widely used in financial transactions.
Interesting.
Especially in debt recovery.
Okay.
Companies might sell bundles of debts to specialized collection agencies, for example.
Wow.
Rather than chasing those payments themselves.
This is getting really interesting. It's like these seemingly simple terms have layers of complexity that can really impact how property transactions and even business deals play out.
Yeah, you're starting to see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And as you delve deeper into property law, you'll discover even more nuances and applications of these fundamental concepts.
Right.
It's like solving a legal puzzle, where each piece connects to create a comprehensive and fascinating framework.
Yeah. Wow. This is definitely more engaging than I expected when we started talking about notice registration, attestation, and actionable claims. It's like a legal thriller unfolding. But instead of a detective, we have these legal concepts driving the plot.
I like that analogy. And just like in a good thriller, real-world cases can really bring these concepts to life. Take, for instance, the concept of constructive notice. Remember our scenario with the construction materials? Well, there's a landmark case, Hindustan Steel Ltd v. Dillip Construction Co. back in 1969, that highlighted the significance of constructive notice. A purchaser failed to inquire about existing contracts related to the property and ended up being held accountable for having constructive notice of those contracts. It's a classic example of why due diligence is so crucial.
That's a cautionary tale, for sure. It's like they say ignorance is not a defense in the eyes of the law, especially when there are clues staring you right in the face. What about attestation? Any interesting cases that illustrate its importance?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The case of M.L. Abdul-Jabbar Sahib V.H. Venkata Sastry, also from 1969, is a landmark judgment regarding attestation. The court held that for attestation to be valid, both witnesses must sign the document in the presence of the person executing it. It might seem like a minor detail, but this case really cemented the importance of strict adherence to the rules of attestation.
So no signing the witness section later as a favor to a friend. Those signatures need to happen then and there in front of everyone involved. It's amazing how these seemingly small details can have huge implications in property law.
Precisely. And that's why having a legal expert guide you through these processes can be invaluable. Now let's shift gears and talk about actionable claims. Remember how we discussed that they can be transferred? The case of Jaffer Meher Ali v. Budge Jute Mills Co. Ltd. in 1976 provides valuable clarity on the rights of parties involved in such assignments. This case underscored that while an actionable claim can be transferred, the assignee, the new owner of the claim, steps into the shoes of the original assigner.
So it's like inheriting both the rights and the responsibilities attached to that claim. If there were any existing issues or disputes, the new owner would have to deal with them as well. It's not just a clean slate.
Exactly. It's crucial to thoroughly understand the history and potential risks associated with any actionable claim before taking it on. Due diligence is just as important here as it is when buying a property.
These case studies really bring home the point that these concepts aren't just abstract legal theories. They have real-world consequences and can significantly impact people's lives and business dealings. It makes you realize how important it is to be well-versed in these matters.
I couldn't agree more. And with technology rapidly evolving, it's fascinating to consider how these concepts might be reshaped in the future.
Speaking of technology, we've talked about how it could impact the future of these legal concepts. But I'm curious if there are any instances where technology is already playing a role in how these principles are enforced.
You're right, technology is already making its mark. Consider the increasing digitization of property records. In many areas, you can now access land ownership records online, making it easier to verify ownership and uncover potential encumbrances. This increased transparency can actually strengthen the concept of notice, making it harder for buyers to claim ignorance of existing claims or interests.
That's pretty amazing. So instead of sifting through dusty files in government office, I can just pull up records on my phone.
Yeah,
It sounds like technology could be a game changer for due diligence.
absolutely. And it's not just about convenience. This shift toward digital records can also help prevent fraud and make property transactions more secure. If records are tamper-proof and easily verifiable, it becomes much harder for someone to falsify ownership documents or conceal existing claims on a property. Imagine a future where blockchain technology could be used to create an immutable record of property ownership, adding another layer of security and transparency to the whole process.
Wow, that's mind-boggling. It sounds like we're on the cusp of a major transformation in how property transactions are conducted. But with all these advancements, do you think the existing legal framework is equipped to handle these changes? Will the Transfer of Property Act, a law enacted in 1882, need some serious updating to keep pace with the digital age?
That's the million-dollar question. As technology reshapes the landscape of property transactions, it's highly likely that the legal framework will need to adapt to address the new challenges and opportunities that arise. We might see amendments to existing laws or even entirely new legislation to govern digital property rights and transactions.
It's both exciting and a little daunting to think about all the changes that might be coming,
Yeah,
but it definitely highlights how dynamic and constantly evolving the field of law truly is.
exactly. And that's what makes it so fascinating. It's not just about interpreting age-old statutes, but also about anticipating future trends and shaping the legal landscape to ensure fairness, transparency, and security in a rapidly changing world.
It's incredible to think how these concepts, which have been around for over a century, are now intersecting with cutting-edge technology.
Yeah.
It makes you realize that law is not static. It's a living, breathing entity that constantly evolves to meet the changing needs of society.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And that's what makes studying and practicing law so intellectually stimulating.
Right.
It's not just about, rote memorization. It's about understanding the principles behind the law and applying them to new and often unforeseen situations.
This deep dive has been an incredible journey. We've gone from the basic definitions of notice registration, attestation, and actionable claims to their real-world applications and their potential evolution in the digital age. I feel like I've gained a much deeper understanding of these concepts and how they fit into the larger framework of property law.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg. As you delve deeper into your legal studies, you'll uncover even more nuances and complexities within these concepts. I'm actually looking forward to it. But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to ponder. We've talked a lot about the potential benefits of technology, like increased transparency and security. But what about the potential downsides? Are there any risks associated with this digital shift in property law?
That's a great question, and one that deserves careful consideration. While technology offers many advantages, it also introduces new challenges. Data privacy and security are major concerns. How do we ensure that sensitive property records are protected from breaches and unauthorized access?
That's a valid point. And what about accessibility? Will everyone have equal access to these digital records? Or could there be a digital divide that further marginalizes certain segments of society?
These are all crucial questions that policymakers and legal experts need to address as we navigate this digital transformation. It's a balancing act between harnessing the power of technology while ensuring fairness, equity, and protection for everyone.
It's a lot to consider, but it's a conversation that needs to happen. This deep dive has not only been informative, but also thought-provoking. I feel like I've gained a more nuanced understanding of these fundamental concepts and a glimpse into the future of property law.
I'm thrilled to hear that. And remember, the law is constantly evolving, so staying informed and engaged is crucial for anyone in the legal field.
Absolutely. Thank you for tuning in to LexTalks. We hope this deep dive has given you a clearer understanding of these foundational legal concepts. Don't forget to subscribe and continue your legal journey with LexTalks. Until next time, keep those legal minds sharp.